Hello and welcome once again to Bold Women Lawyers Spotlight. We have a great show today, a terrific guest, Cary Jacobson, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Cary and her background, and then we're going to hear from her about how she found the legal work that she loves to do and found a way to build her practice around that and not have to do all those things that she really didn't like doing as a lawyer. But let me tell you about Cary before we jump in. Cary is the founder and managing partner of Jacobson Family Law. She's been practicing for nearly a decade. She successfully represented clients in all facets of family law proceedings: separation, divorce, child custody, child support, post-divorce enforcement, and all other family law related matters. And at one point along the way, she made a decision, and her decision was to dedicate her practice to working with clients who wanted to resolve family disputes without court intervention. What attracted me to Cary as a guest was just that. Cary, I think I had seen you maybe on LinkedIn and took a look at your website. And what jumps out at me when I get on your website, keeping the drama out of divorce. And I saw that tagline and I thought, this is great because this is somebody who has learned and knows the value of choosing a niche or a niche, depending on how you want to say it, and really, really focusing on that area. So we're going to talk all about that today. Cary, welcome. Thank you for coming on as a guest.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So let's jump in, okay? I'm going to ask just first, tell us a little bit about your journey as a lawyer, how you started your a practice or in any practice and how you ended up in your own practice.
Sure. So I did a little bit of a non-traditional route and took 5 years off of school between undergrad and going back to law school, even though I had actually already taken the LSATs. I took the LSATs back in undergrad. I knew from the time I was in middle school that I wanted to be a lawyer and go to law school. What specifically I wanted to do in the law changed and life got away from me a little bit. But I was able to find my way back and did go to law school, the evening program, as a mid-20s. And while I was in law school, I actually began working for a family law attorney. And my undergrad is in sociology and with a minor in psychology. So family law was a natural fit. Yeah. And so I graduated from law school and stayed with the family law practitioner that I was with and worked there for another 5 years or so, doing the traditional family law practice, as you were referring to, with all the litigation that goes along with that. And then ultimately, after several years there, I decided to open my own practice because I was doing a lot of the same work while in the other firm. Actually, I think we had spoken that when I was coming back from maternity leave with my first child, the day before I came back, that my previous boss had a heart attack and triple bypass surgery.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. And it was just the two of you, right?
It was just the two of us as attorneys at the time. Yes. We had support staff and some law clerks, but it was just the two of us as attorneys. And so for the most part, I was running the practice primarily by myself at that point. And then I decided that, I may as well give it a go on my own and see what happens.
Sure. Why not? You had been doing it for somebody else, right? Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. So you went out on your own at that point? Okay.
Yes. So that was 2015. And then I ultimately decided, several years later that I was unhappy with the traditional family law approach. And
So
then
what were you unhappy with as you looked at it? I assume you had a full book of business. You were busy doing what you had always done. But what made you stop and say, I think I need to rethink this a little bit?
it was the day-to-day just unhappiness of the traditional litigation, and all that went along with that. At least for me, that was never really my, while I did a good job at it, it was just not something I enjoyed. And but I felt like it was a means to an end as far as representing clients, because that was the way that that was what you had to do to have a family law practice,
Sure.
was to take the good with the bad, and represent pretty much any client that came through the door. And
Okay.
ultimately, I had a business coach that asked me, of the cases that you deal with, what really makes you happy? What are the ones that you enjoy the most? And I said it was honestly the uncontested ones, the ones where everybody gets along. They can, truly put the kids at the forefront of their decisions, and they want to come out on the other side friends.
So, okay. So now you've been able to say, okay, these are the cases I like. These are the cases I don't like at all. How did you take that next step? Because that's a pretty big leap. The traditional way is, as you said, you take it all because family law involves going to court. So if you want to do family law, then you're going to have to be in court. But you've made a decision then at this point, I don't really like that. But how do you take that next step to say, okay, I'm going to do family law, but I'm not going to go to court?
So it took a little while. It took a
I
little
bet.
while
I bet it
to
did.
really wrap my head around it, and to get over, the fear every owner has, which is, am I turning away business? How am I going to turn away business that's going to pay the bills? But I kept listening to different podcasts and different business coaching programs and that sort of thing, and ultimately decided that every time I took one of those cases, I knew how unhappy it made me. And so ultimately, I finally just made the decision that we're going to transition, and we're not going to take additional litigation cases, and we're going to focus all of our marketing on, alternative dispute resolutions, and let clients know that there is a better way, inform them about the different options that are available, and let them know that, if it comes down to it and they want to do litigation, that we're probably not the fit for them.
But you can send them to somebody
Right.
who is. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So at the time you were, you're working on this and you're thinking, I think I want to put a transition in place. Were you the only lawyer in your practice? Did you have support staff? What was your makeup of your law firm?
It was myself as the attorney, and then I had an administrative assistant that was working with me. I don't think I had a paralegal at that point in time. I hired paralegal shortly thereafter.
Okay. So now it's time for the transition. How does that work? How did you do that?
Well, first was to do a new website. So the one we have now, do a new website and really marketing towards that alternative dispute, that we're only focusing on those types of cases. So getting the word out, notifying all of our other colleagues that this is the process that we're doing now. If they have mediation cases, or if they need someone to review separation agreements, those are the types of cases that we're going to take. And then also, changing the marketing for our social media and that sort of thing, so that we could target those clients that we really were looking for.
Well, and I think, as I said, the tagline on your website says it all: keeping the drama out of divorce. And it struck me that that was such a powerful message that would attract to you the people who really are looking to keep the drama out, and would repel those people who are saying, heck no, I'm going to fight him or her tooth and nail. We're going to go at it in court. So this is not the law firm for me. Is that how it turned out?
It really has. Every once in a while we'll have a client that makes it through, that is a little that has a challenging case, but most of it is self-selected. The parties that come to us tell us over and over again that they want an amicable resolution, they don't want to fight, that many times they come to us for mediation and they don't want other attorneys involved because they're concerned that it's going to make the case more complicated than they want it to be. And so
let me stop you there for a second. So when that happens, you said when they come to you for mediation, is it both sides are coming saying, we want to mediate this, we don't want to have to hire attorneys and fight this out?
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we will do consultations with both parties and kind of talk to them about their divorce process options. We don't provide any legal advice during the consultations, so there's not a conflict of interest issue. And we just give them the different options that are available. And many of them do choose to go the mediation route. And we advise that they should have attorneys, but we don't require them to have attorneys if they choose not to. And many times they will choose not to. And because they've reached an agreement between themselves as to how they want to handle things. And then we typically will prepare the final separation agreement that memorializes their agreement.
Okay. And then at that point, you're operating as the mediator. You're not representing either side.
Correct.
At that point, then, do they take the draft agreement? Do they usually take it to a lawyer, their own lawyers, to review?
We do
recommend.
We always let them know that they should. Some do, some choose not to.
Okay. So tell me, what was the effect on your business once you did this? The volume of business. I know your happiness level went way up. That part I know for sure.
My anxiety level has reduced quite drastically.
Okay. But let's talk about the business side. What was the effect on your business?
Yeah, we have grown. I hired an associate in the May of this year. We have now 3 support staff, and it's going well, and we are continuing to grow and hoping to expand. We are a completely virtual practice, and so we can honestly service all of Maryland, and
Indeed.
mediation can service really the entire region.
That's fabulous. And you are a live example of the phrase less is more. By really understanding what you wanted to do and who you want to serve, and then taking that next step and being willing to focus all of your business efforts in terms of marketing and your processes on those clients, you have grown.
Right.
And you're bringing on you've brought on another lawyer, you brought on more support staff, and that's truly what will happen. I know people don't believe it, but it is true. That is truly what will happen.
So counterintuitive.
It does. I don't disagree with that. And I talk to clients about this all the time. It does feel counterintuitive because there's all these other people out there I could serve.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the point. Are you qualified to serve them? Sure. A, do you want to serve them? And too often, I think we don't think about that unless we're super unhappy with the clientele the type of work that we're doing, not the people themselves, but the type of work that we're doing. And so for those of us, and it happened to me too, I became very dissatisfied with the kind of work that I was doing. And I felt like it just forced me to take that leap of faith and say, you know what, I'm going to completely transition my practice to a whole new area. Mm-hmm. But it made all the difference, right? Because at that point then, cases started to, explode in numbers. You bring on more staff, and everything flows so much better, and you're happier
Right.
in your work. So, okay. So tell me, I know you do mediation, you do um, uh, the post, you can tell I was not a family law lawyer, the post mediation agreement. And so, how about like prenups and postnups? Do you do those also?
Yes. So we do prenuptial agreements as well as postnuptial agreements. Um, we've actually expanded into doing prenuptial mediation, which has been wonderful.
Ah,
It's a
ah,
great, place for a new couple to really have those hard conversations and kind of talk through how they anticipate handling financial affairs going forward. Um, and that really
point.
sets them up for success going forward in their new relationship, by having those hard conversations.
That's a great point, because I think most people go, "Oh no, last thing I want to talk about with him or her
Right.
is money. We'll figure it out. We'll
Right.
figure it out as we go along," right?
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people do it. But it's great to hear that some people, are able to say, let's work this out in a negotiation or mediation
Right.
type of atmosphere beforehand, so that we're both clear. And then when you do that, um, does that end up in some type of written agreement,
It,
or
yes.
how does that end?
Yeah. So it turns into their prenuptial agreement that they will both sign and have. Hopefully it sits in a drawer and never has to be looked at. But if ever it's necessary to use either, upon divorce or upon death, then they have, an outline of how things are going to be handled.
Now, does that just apply to people, say, that have been maybe get married at an older age, and they each have some assets that they're bringing to the marriage? Or would that apply to a younger couple that may not have as much, but um, needs to have that conversation and perhaps have some agreement in place as to what's going to happen should everything fall apart?
I mean, I personally think it's helpful for anyone. I equate it to like an insurance policy. It's there in the event of, just so in the worst case scenario, something does happen, you're going into the relationship knowing what the final outcome will be as far as the division of assets. And it's one less thing you have to worry about, should you divorce in the future. But we've also seen an uptick in postnuptial agreements, which is basically an agreement that gets signed by a married couple after marriage. Many times that's because one or both of the spouses have started a business during marriage, and now they want to have some protection around the business.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. In case things go a little sideways,
Right.
so to speak.
Yeah.
So Cary, tell me, when you were thinking about making this transition and then made the leap, what was your biggest fear as you made that transition?
I think, as always, the fear is that you're not going to have enough clients. Are people going to keep calling? Are they going to come through the door? Is this going to be viable? There's always cycles,
Sure.
and everybody has a fear that, is where are we going to get our next client from? But ultimately, it really has been an increase in volume of business as opposed to, any sort of decrease.
Well, and there was something interesting you said in the very beginning, that now you can pretty easily serve the entire state of Maryland.
Yeah.
Which is not so easy if you're doing litigation.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. So almost every jurisdiction in Maryland is now on electronic filing. Prince George's County just went electronic, I think, and Baltimore is in process.
Okay.
And now with, now that the one silver lining of COVID is that many of the courts have taken to uncontested divorces being virtual. And so it really does allow us to have the ability to represent most clients in Maryland, because we can do it anywhere. And, we're not having to charge clients for time sitting in court waiting for your 15-minute hearing.
Exactly.
And so, and it's so much more relaxing for the clients. They don't have to drive to the courthouse and wait hours and that sort of thing. So it's typically a 10 to 15-minute virtual Zoom hearing for an uncontested divorce these days. I think I've been to court maybe once or twice, but that's only in a scenario where I'm representing kids that are court appointed.
Okay. And that's a whole different area. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. There are two things that we've talked about before that I'd like to get into a little bit. One is, I know you're trained in collaborative law. How does that fit into your current scenario and your current business?
Yeah, so collaborative divorce is an alternative dispute resolution option that is available to parties. It is more of a team approach, and there are a team of professionals that are participating in that process. So it's collaboratively trained attorneys representing each of the parties. Mm-hmm. And many times we have two mental health professionals who are the divorce coaches that work with the parties in creating parenting plans and honestly keeping everybody organized and on task. And then we often have financial neutrals that are involved in the process. And so it's a dispute resolution that is available to parties that need a little bit more hand-holding than some of the other process options. And is especially effective when, in my opinion, one spouse is further along in the emotional processing of the divorce, and the other spouse is further behind. It really gives a little bit more support to those individuals through the process because there are the professionals involved.
That's a great point, because I know that I have seen with my own friends that scenario where one party is much further along than the other, and it's difficult, and it makes it difficult on both sides, but particularly for the person that's not quite as far along, to make good, sound judgments and to be acting in a way that's going to best protect himself or herself, as opposed to acting out of emotion. So that seems to me to be just a tremendous asset to be able to bring to the table for couples for whom, they would be agreeable to do that. And you still keep the drama out because you've got the support, the other professionals involved. And then how about, I know we had talked about fees. Traditionally you bill by the hour, right? As a family lawyer?
Most traditional family lawyers,
yes.
Most traditional family lawyers do bill hourly. Yes.
So how about you? What's your process?
Yeah. So the majority of our fees are actually flat fee. The one exception is the collaborative divorce because it's a little bit more involved, and the amount of time that it takes varies from client to client depending on the situation. But most of our other services, prenuptial agreements, the mediation packages, and even negotiating the terms of a separation agreement are typically flat fee packages.
Well, and that becomes, again, important in terms of marketing because it's difficult. And I can say this not as a divorce client. Fortunately, I've not had to go down that road, but I can say this as someone who has had to use legal services. I knew enough not to be my own lawyer. Okay, we all know that. In a specialty area that I knew nothing about. But there is hourly billing that's involved, and you just sort of hold your breath like, oh, here comes this month's bill. How much is this going to be? Because you don't have a good feel, and I don't have a good feel, even as a lawyer, for how long is this going to take?
Right.
So there's, for clients, that is, I would think, very reassuring that they say, okay, this is the fee. I might not like it. I might think it's too, whatever, but this is the fee. This is what I'm going to have to pay. Now now I'm done with that. I don't have to worry about every month getting another bill and another bill and another bill. And like I said, my very limited experience with it was twofold. One was how much is it going to be? And then the other was, they're charging me for that. And then I had to pull myself back and say, wait a minute, that these are all valid charges, but I can see how a layperson
Right.
can start to get unhappy.
Yes.
Put it that way. Unhappy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes. So you've taken, as much as you can, much of the unhappiness out of divorce, at least on the law side. Put it that way. At least on the
Right.
legal side. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We know that, it's never a happy occasion, even in situations where both parties are in agreement and they know this is what's best. There's still the emotional side, and we recognize that. We just try to minimize the stress that they're experiencing as much as possible. And we try to give additional professional resources that may be helpful, whether that's a therapist or a divorce coach or a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, whatever the case may be. Having that network of professionals to rely on is also very helpful.
Yes, definitely. Well, Cary, this has been an eye-opener. My discussion, as a non-family law lawyer, it's been an eye-opener for me to learn about what all the alternatives are. But also on the business side, I just, really salute you for being able to say and accept, like, I'm really unhappy doing this and I'm going to make a change. And then actually making the change. Because I talk to a lot of lawyers that are unhappy, but they're too frightened to make the change. And so sadly, the unhappiness perpetuates for them. So listen, if somebody that's listening wanted to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that?
Yes, absolutely. So our website, which is jacobsonfamilylaw.com. We're on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And our phone number is 443-741-1147.
Okay, let me add that again. Let me put that up here. 443-741-1147. 1147. All right. Okay. All right. Terrific. Well, listen, this has been great. Cary, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know everybody who's listening now and who is going to listen in the future will get a lot out of this. And you saw, and I'll put it back up again, Cary's contact information. So if you want to get in touch with her, don't hesitate to do that. And for me, anybody who has not yet downloaded my Solo Success Guide, go to my website at boldwomenlawyers.com. Make sure you download the guide. There's great business tips in there, and then you'll continue to get some business tips going forward, unless you opt out, and then we will respect your wishes and opt you out. But we'd love to have you download it. We'd love to be able to keep in touch with you. So I thank everybody for listening today. It's been a great conversation. And we do have one comment from Diane. Thank you, Diane. She said, just to let you know, Cary, such a hopeful approach for a stressful and sad situation for folks going through a divorce. I agree with that. It takes not all of the sting, but it takes a lot of the sting out of it. So kudos to you, Cary, for the work that you do. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening, and come back next week. We'll have another great guest.